Walk out your back door right now. Look at your yard. The single thing you spent the most money on out there is probably the thing quietly costing you the most. I've walked thousands of backyards over almost 30 years in this trade. I've installed these features, I've ripped them back out, and I've stood next to homeowners while a buyer's agent did the polite head nod that really means subtract 20 grand. Here's the truth. Nobody in my business says out loud. Half the stuff people brag about in the backyard actually shrinks the pool of buyers and slows the sale. The other half just rots, leaks, or eats your weekends. I'm going to count down 12 backyard features people regret, from the merely annoying all the way up to the one that silently torches more home value than anything else out there. And the number one is something I got wrong on my own property, the kind of mistake that costs almost nothing to fix and almost everyone ignores. I remember standing in a backyard in 2019, beautiful house, and the owner had spent $11,000 on a feature I'm going to warn you about tonight. The buyers asked how much it would cost to remove it. That moment changed how I quote every job. This applies whether you're planning to die in that house at 90 or list it next spring. Stay with me, because the higher we climb, the more money is on the line. Let's start at number 12, the trampoline, and the same goes for the wooden swing set fortress. I know your kids love it, but hear me out, because this one is sneaky. A trampoline isn't really a value problem. It's a perception problem. And perception is money. When a buyer walks into a backyard and the first thing they see is a giant black circle of dead grass under a trampoline, their brain does two things instantly. It thinks liability, and it thinks that lawn is ruined. Underneath the trampoline, the turf gets zero light and zero rain for years. By the time you pull it, you've got a perfect dead ring of compacted dirt that takes a full season to grow back. The play fort is worse, because it's bolted down and rotting. I've watched homeowners spend $2,000 on a cedar play structure, and 6 years later, a buyer with no kids sees a $2,000 demolition job. So here's what I tell people. If you're staying, fine, enjoy it, but move it once a year so you don't kill a permanent bald patch. If you're selling, take the trampoline down before the first showing. It costs you an afternoon, and it instantly gives the buyer back a usable lawn in their imagination. But a dead patch of grass is nothing compared to a feature that's bolted into your patio and impossible to ignore. Which brings me to number 11. Number 11 is the built-in fire pit in the wrong spot. Fire pits are great. Everybody wants one. The regret isn't the fire pit itself, it's that people build a permanent stone or concrete one in a location they didn't think about for more than 10 minutes. Here's what happens. Somebody pours a beautiful flagstone fire pit 15 feet off the back of the house, dead center in the yard, looks amazing in May. Then they actually use it, and the smoke blows straight at the patio every single evening because they never noticed the prevailing wind. Now they've got a $4,000 feature they avoid, sitting in the middle of the only flat space in the yard, blocking every other use of that lawn. The numbers tell the story. A simple portable fire pit runs you maybe $150 to $400, and you can move it the second the smoke turns on you. A built-in masonry pit can run $3,000 to $7,000 installed, and appraisers give you almost nothing back for it because the next owner may not want fire in that exact spot. So if you love the idea, start with a quality portable one and live with it for a full season. Find the corner where the wind cooperates and the smoke drifts away from where you sit. Then, only then, if you still want permanent, you build it in the right place. A fire pit in the wrong spot just wastes the lawn. Therefore, the next one is far more dangerous because it doesn't just sit there, it actively breaks and leaks, and that's where we hit number 10. Number 10 is the backyard pond and the elaborate water feature. I've built these. I've also been called back to fill these in more times than I can count. A koi pond or a multi-tier waterfall looks like a slice of paradise in the catalog. In real life, it's a part-time job with a pump. A natural-looking pond, the kind with the liner and the waterfall and the fish, costs anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 to build right. That's not the painful part. The painful part is that it's a magnet for algae, mosquitoes, leaves, raccoons, and herons that treat your koi like a buffet. The pump runs constantly and adds to your power bill. You're skimming it every weekend. Now here's the resale gut punch. To a buyer with young kids, a deep pond reads as a drowning hazard, not a feature. To a buyer who travels, it reads as a chore they have to pay someone to maintain. I had a listing where the seller spent $9,000 on a pond, and the winning buyer's first question was, what would it cost to fill it in and put grass back? The answer was about $2,000, and they took it right off their offer. If you genuinely love the sound of water, get a self-contained bubbling fountain or a disappearing reservoir feature. It runs a few $100s. There's no standing water for kids or mosquitoes, and you can unplug it and walk away when you sell. You get the trickle without the trap. A pond at least looks pretty while it drains your time, but the next feature does something worse. It drains your wallet on day one and keeps a tiny piece of your home off limits forever, and that's number 9. Number 9 is the oversized hot tub or in-ground spa. Look, I'm not anti-hot tub. A good one you actually use is a joy. The regret comes from 2 things: the size people buy and the way they install it. Most folks buy the 8-person monster and then 4 people use it twice a year. That big tub costs you in every direction. The unit itself runs $6,000 to $15,000, but the silent killer is the running cost. Keeping a large spa heated can add $40 to $100 a month to your electric bill every month, whether you soak or not. Over 10 years, that's thousands of dollars to keep water hot for nobody. Then there's the in-ground spa, the one tiled permanently into the patio. Now, you can never change your mind. When that buyer who doesn't want a hot tub shows up, they see a cold concrete hole and a repair bill, not a luxury. If you want one, buy a smaller 2 to 4 person tub that's above ground and could be sold or hauled off if your life changes. Put it on a reinforced pad close to the house so the walk in winter isn't brutal, because a hot tub 30 feet from the door in January is a hot tub you'll stop using by February. Now we've covered the features that cost you money to keep. Let's talk about the ones people choose specifically to save money, the ones that backfire and read as cheap, because this is where I see good homeowners get fooled. That brings me to number 8. Number 8 is wall-to-wall gravel and rock instead of plants. Somewhere along the way, people got sold the idea that rock is low maintenance and lawn is high maintenance, so they rip out the grass and dump tons of gray gravel across the whole yard. I understand the logic. I also get the call 2 years later asking how to undo it. Here's what nobody tells you. Rock is not maintenance free, it's maintenance delayed. Leaves and dirt blow in, settle between the stones, break down into soil, and within a couple of seasons, you've got weeds growing right out of your rock bed, and you cannot mow weeds out of gravel. You're on your knees with a sprayer. On top of that, a big field of rock absorbs heat all day and bakes your yard like a skillet, so the space gets too hot to enjoy in summer. And visually, a backyard that's all gray stone reads as harsh and cheap to most buyers. There's no softness, no life. National gardening and real estate surveys consistently show buyers respond to greenery and a healthy lawn, not a parking lot. A little gravel as a path or a dry creek for drainage is smart. A whole yard of it is a mistake that's expensive to install and miserable to reverse, because once that landscape fabric and 3 tons of rock are down, pulling it back out is brutal, sweaty work, but gravel is just lazy. The next one is when people try to look fancy and end up signaling the opposite, which lands us at number 7. Number 7 is the giant built-in outdoor kitchen. This is the feature that screams, I spent a fortune and got almost none of it back. The full outdoor kitchen, the built-in grill, the stone counters, the little fridge, the sink, the pizza oven, the whole stainless setup. People drop $15,000, $20,000, even $30,000 on these. Here's the field reality. Remodeling industry cost versus value data has shown for years that high-end outdoor kitchens recoup only a fraction of what you put in, often well under half. That built-in fridge dies in a few seasons because it's living outdoors through freezing winters and blazing summers. The stainless pits and rusts unless it's marine grade. And the next owner may grill totally differently than you do, so your custom layout is just concrete in their way. I'm not telling you to give up cooking outside. I'm telling you the smart money builds a great grilling zone, not a built-in restaurant. A solid freestanding grill, a good prep cart, and a nice paved patio under it gives you 80% of the function for a fraction of the cost, and you can take the grill with you when you move. The permanent version locks thousands of dollars into the ground and hands the next owner a teardown. So far, everything I've named is something you can choose not to do. The next one is something a lot of you already planted years ago, and it's spreading right now while you watch this, and that's number 6. Number 6 is the fast-growing privacy screen that becomes a monster, and the worst offender is running bamboo. Everyone wants privacy. A neighbor builds a 2-story addition that looks into your yard, and you panic and plant the fastest growing thing the nursery will sell you. Sometimes that's bamboo. Sometimes it's a row of fast poplars or a leyland cypress hedge, and in the moment, it feels like a brilliant, cheap fix. Running bamboo is the one that haunts people. It sends underground runners that travel under fences, under patios, and pop up in your neighbor's lawn and your own flower beds. I've seen it crack a patio slab. Getting it out can cost thousands of dollars in excavation, and in some places your neighbor can come after you for the damage it does to their property. The fast trees aren't much better. Those leyland cypress hedges everybody planted look great for about 8 years. Then they hit 30 or 40 feet. The inside browns out. Disease moves through the whole row, and you've got a wall of half-dead trees to take down at $500 to $1,000+ each. If you need privacy, do it the slower, smart way. Use clumping bamboo, which stays put, not the running kind. Or mix a few well-chosen evergreens you actually have room for at full size. Or, honestly, a good fence and a couple of strategic trees beats a runaway hedge every time. The cheap, fast fix is the one that turns into the expensive emergency. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right about now. You're thinking this whole video is for people with money to burn, and your budget is basically a few $100 and a free Saturday. Stay with me, because this next part is built specifically for you, and it's where the real returns hide. The biggest mistakes I see aren't the expensive features. They're the cheap details people get wrong that cost almost nothing to fix and change how the entire yard reads. So let's get into the ones that pay you back. Number 5 is the patchy, neglected lawn. And this is the cheapest, high-return fix in the entire yard. Here's something that surprises people. Of all the things in a backyard, the plain old lawn is what buyers and appraisers react to most consistently. A thick, green-edged lawn says this home is cared for. A thin, weedy, patchy lawn says what else did they neglect? The research backs this hard. Studies out of university turf and horticulture programs and surveys from real estate and appraisal groups have repeatedly put the return on a healthy, well-maintained lawn and basic landscaping at 100% or more of the cost. Some estimates put curb and yard appeal at adding anywhere from 5 to over 10% to perceived home value. There is almost nothing else in your yard that returns like that, and it costs next to nothing. A bag of grass seed, a bag of fertilizer, and a couple weekends of watering will transform a tired lawn for under $100. Overseed the thin spots in the right season for your grass. Sharpen your mower blade so you're cutting the grass clean instead of shredding it brown at the tips. Mow a little higher because taller grass shades out weeds and holds moisture. This is the rare fix that serves both groups watching me. If you're staying, you get a yard that feels good under your feet all summer. If you're selling, you get the single highest confidence return in the whole landscape for the price of a few bags from the garden center. And if you want to go deeper on exactly which fixes pay you back and which ones quietly work against you, I've put everything I know into a series of digital books called First Look, Deep Curb, and Curb Appeal. Complete years of field knowledge organized so you can move through it fast and actually use it. You can find them linked in the description below. Whether you read one or all 3, you'll walk your property differently starting tomorrow. A healthy lawn makes the yard look loved, but there's an even cheaper detail that makes a lawn look professionally maintained versus amateur, and that's number 4. Number 4 is the missing edge, the lack of clean lines anywhere in the yard. This is the secret weapon nobody talks about because there's no product to sell you. The difference between a yard that looks expensive and a yard that looks cheap is almost never the plants. It's the edges. Walk past a property that looks high-end and look closely. You'll see a crisp, defined line where the lawn meets the bed, where the grass meets the driveway, where one zone ends and another begins. Walk past a sloppy-looking yard and those lines are blurry, grass creeping into the mulch, beds with no border, everything bleeding together. I learned this on the job years ago. We'd finish a planting, and the homeowner would be lukewarm. Then we'd cut a clean trench edge around every bed, a simple V-shaped cut with a spade, and suddenly they'd say, "It looks like a magazine." We didn't add a single plant. We just gave the eye a clean line to follow. You can do this yourself with a flat spade and an afternoon. Cut a shallow trench edge about 3 to 4 inches deep between every lawn and bed. No plastic edging that heaves up in winter and looks cheap. Just a clean cut earth edge, then mulch up to it. It costs you nothing but sweat, and it makes everything you already own look intentional and maintained. Clean edges and a green lawn cost almost nothing and pay you back the most. Therefore, the next two are the big ticket features where the most money is won or lost, and most people get them backwards. Starting with number 3. Number 3 is the rotting, oversized wooden deck. The deck is where people pour serious money expecting serious return, and they often get the opposite. A massive, multi-level wood deck, pressure-treated or even cedar, looks incredible the year it's built. Then the weather goes to work. Wood decks demand constant maintenance. You're cleaning and resealing or restaining every 2 to 3 years, and if you skip it, the boards gray out, splinter, cup, and the fasteners start popping. A neglected wood deck doesn't read as a feature, it reads as a repair bill and a safety question. Buyers bounce on decks because they can't tell if it's sound or rotting underneath, and a rotten deck post is a real hazard. And the size matters more than people think. An enormous deck that swallows the entire backyard actually hurts you because now there's no lawn, no yard, just a sea of wood that needs maintenance. The remodeling cost versus value reports do show decks returning a decent chunk, often better than most luxury features, but that's a modest, well-built deck, not a sprawling, high-maintenance monster. If you've got a wood deck, the cheapest move is to actually maintain it, clean it, and reseal it, tighten the loose boards, replace any soft ones. If you're building new, seriously look at composite, because the higher upfront cost buys you decades with almost no maintenance, and buyers love hearing no maintenance. And keep it in proportion, leave some real yard. A deck is at least useful even when it's flawed. The next one, though, is the feature people install to look modern and end up creating a problem that radiates heat and ages badly, and that's number 2. Number 2 is wall-to-wall artificial turf. Fake grass got slick and trendy, and the pitch sounds perfect. Never mow, never water, always green. I've installed it, and for a tiny shaded courtyard or a dog run, it has its place. But carpeting your whole backyard in plastic grass is a regret machine, and here's why. First, the cost. Good artificial turf installed runs you somewhere around $8 to $15 a square foot, sometimes more. For a real backyard, that's easily $15,000 to $30,000. That's pool money to install plastic. Second, the heat. This is the part the sales brochure skips. Synthetic turf in direct summer sun can get astonishingly hot, far hotter than real grass, hot enough to be uncomfortable to walk on barefoot, and hot enough to radiate warmth into your whole patio. You install it to enjoy the yard, and then you can't stand on it in July. Third, it ages. It mats down in the high-traffic paths. It holds pet odor. It collects dust and debris that you end up rinsing and brushing. So much for maintenance-free. And it has a lifespan. In 10 to 15 years, it's faded and flattened, and you're paying to rip out and dispose of a yard full of plastic. And here's the resale wrinkle. A growing number of buyers specifically don't want it for environmental reasons or because they've heard the heat complaints. So you've spent pool money on something that may actually narrow your buyers. For most yards, a healthy, real lawn. The cheap fix I already gave you beats fake grass on cost, on comfort, and on resale. So we've climbed all the way up. Pools and ponds, and outdoor kitchens, decks and turf, and bamboo. You'd think the number one regret would be the most expensive feature of all. It isn't. The biggest value killer in the American backyard is something most people can't even see, and that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Here's number 1. Number 1 is bad drainage and grading that runs water toward the house. This is the one. This is the silent killer I got wrong on my own property. and it's the thing that quietly destroys more home value than any feature on this list because it doesn't just sit in the yard. It attacks the most expensive part of your home, the foundation. Here's what almost nobody checks. Which way does your backyard slope? When it rains hard, where does the water go? In a shocking number of yards I've walked, the ground slopes the wrong way, back toward the house, or the soil has settled against the foundation over the years, and now there's a low spot collecting water right at the wall. People pour money into pretty features 20 feet away while water is pooling against their foundation every single storm, and here's why this is the secret finale, the thing the trade has a quiet reason not to push. Drainage isn't sexy. Nobody can sell you a glossy catalog photo of proper grading. There's no Instagram post for a downspout extension. So landscapers steer you toward the patio and the fire pit and the plantings that show, and the invisible thing that actually protects your biggest investment gets ignored by them and by you. I learned this the hard way. Years back, I had a flower bed up against my own house, beautifully mulched, and I'd unknowingly built the soil up higher than the foundation line. After a couple of heavy seasons, I started seeing dampness in the basement. A foundation specialist quoted me a number that made my stomach drop, the kind of repair that runs into the thousands, sometimes $10,000 or far more if it gets bad, all because of dirt sloped the wrong direction. Here's the part that should make you feel good, because the fix is almost free and you can do it this weekend. Walk your foundation. The ground should slope away from the house, dropping about 6 inches over the first 10 feet. If it's flat or tilting back, pull the soil and mulch away from the wall and build that gentle slope going outward. Get your downspouts to dump water at least 4 to 6 feet away from the foundation, not right at the base, just add cheap extensions. Find the low spots where water sits after a storm and fill them so water sheds away instead of pooling. That's it. A bag or two of soil, a couple of downspout extensions for $10 a piece, and an afternoon with a shovel. Under $100, no contractor, and you're protecting the one thing that, if it fails, makes every other feature in this video meaningless. A buyer's inspector finds water in the basement and the deal is dead or the price craters. You fix the slope and you've quietly defended tens of thousands of dollars that nobody, not your landscaper, not your neighbor, ever told you was at risk. That's the whole game out here. The features everyone photographs are rarely the ones that protect your money, and the boring stuff under your feet is where the real wealth is saved. If you take one thing from me tonight, let it be this. You just walked your own backyard in your head, and you probably spotted at least one of these, and the fact that you caught it now before a buyer or an inspector or a foundation crack caught it for you means you just saved yourself real money. You're the kind of homeowner who'd rather hear the blunt truth from the guy in the truck than a smooth pitch from somebody trying to sell you a pond. That's exactly who I make these for, so tell me, which one of these 12 are you guilty of right now? Be honest, is it the trampoline ring in the lawn, the bamboo you're starting to regret, the giant deck, or did I just send you outside to check which way your yard slopes? Drop the number in the comments and tell me what town or what part of the country you're watching from, because the drainage advice shifts a lot depending on your soil and your rain. And if you'd rather catch these mistakes before they cost you instead of after, subscribe and stand with the homeowners who refuse to get fleeced on their own property. Next time I'm breaking down the 5 plants people put right against the house that nursery workers will never warn you about, because one of them does the exact same foundation damage we just talked about, only faster. I'll see you there.